Good afternoon. I hope everybody's having a good weekend. Jimmy here in the great city of Chicago. Sunday fun day, kicking back, watching some of these good football games, couple upsets. Looking forward to the game tonight, though, with the Miami Dolphins and Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going with the underdog, the Miami Dolphins. I think they're going to win by 3. Also, we got the Major League Baseball going on. I think Philly is going all the way. This is their year. And then we got the start of the NHL hockey season. And pretty soon, right around the corner, the NBA is going to be starting. I want to give a quick shout out to two of my favorite YouTube channels, Skinny Joey Merlino and Chatting with Stacks. These guys are starting to go after all the rats and snitches. And it gave me an idea. I'm going to start exposing and destroying some of Chicago's rats, some of our very own snitches, and government informants that I actually seen in the courtroom take the stand and testify against their own family and friends, knowing that their testimony is going to send them to jail. We're going to talk about snitches like Junior Calabrese, who wore a wire against his own father, testified against his dad in court. We'll talk about Nick Calabrese, his uncle, confessed to participating in 14 murders. His first murder, he was so scared he pissed himself. In one of the murders, he actually slit the guy's throat from ear to ear. Nick Calabrese showed no remorse, was scared of dying in prison, decided to flip, cooperate, and testify against his own brother, Jimmy Marcello, Paulie Shiro, and other friends and associates he had. He actually, in one of the 14 murders, was his best friend, John Fecarata, that he personally pulled the trigger on. Or we got 78-year-old career Jewish gangster Lenny Patrick. This guy went back to the Al Capone days. He admitted to killing 6 people, robbed over 100 banks, had knowledge of 22 outfit hits, didn't want to go to jail, decided to flip and cooperate and wear a wire against Gus Alex, who was 76 at the time. Or you got one of the snitches at the Mike Sarno trial. You got Mark Hale, drug addict, pedophile, career criminal, mob guy wannabe, professional thief. He got caught in a home burglary. The old man who was in his 70s caught him in the act. They got in a fight. The old man was whooping his ass, getting the best of him. In order to Mark Hale to break free and run away like a little bitch, he actually stabbed the old man in the leg to break free. He also wore a wire against the Master Blaster, a World War II veteran. He got him on tape bragging about a bomb that the crew made. Or another snitch, Blowjob Jehoda, BJ Jehoda, mob bookie, career criminal, thief, had a little tax problem. Owed a couple guys a couple $100,000 due to his gambling habits. Rather than do 2-3 years in jail, he decided to cooperate and wear a wire on Rocky and Felice and all his crew. These are supposed to be his friends. So these are just some of the rats that I personally seen in court that I want to start to expose and go after. The government literally makes deals with the devils just to go after bigger targets. We'll call it, say, Rat of the Month. And here in October, my Rat of the Month is this guy here, Bob Cooley, crooked Chicago cop, corrupt lawyer. I seen him testify against Chicago outfit heavyweight Harry Allman at the 26th and California court building. I seen him testify against powerful First Ward Alderman Fred Rohde at the Dirksen Federal Building. He claims that one day he was fed up with the corruption in Chicago, and he walked into the FBI headquarters in Chicago, unannounced, no appointment, asked if he could see an agent. A couple agents sat down with him, and he asked for the FBI's help if they could help him bring down the powerful First Ward in the Chicago outfit. At first, the agents, they really couldn't believe what they were hearing. They didn't trust Bob Cooley because not too many people will walk into an FBI building and volunteer information, volunteer to cooperate. But this started a 3-year investigation called Operation Gambat, where Bob Cooley, crooked cop, corrupt lawyer, wore a wire on all his friends in the Chicago outfit that he knew, made guys and associates. And he also wired up thousands of hours of conversations on fixed cases and all kinds of criminal activity and illegal deals that he did with guys in the First Ward, guys like Pat Marcy, John DiArco, Alderman Rhodey, and others. One thing Bob Cooley doesn't like to talk about in his books, in his videos, and all his tours is that pretty much all of his clients, all the lowlifes that he represented, were gangbangers, rapists, drug dealers, thieves, burglars, wise guys. Most of them all paid in cash. A lot of that was under the table dealings. So he was way behind in his taxes. He owed a couple $100,000 in back taxes. Cooley was probably looking at about 2 years in prison. And rather than keep some of his money and all his friends happy and suck it up and do a couple years in prison, he decided to flip, cooperate, and wear a wire on all the major players in the First Ward and as many Chicago outfit guys as he could. Now, you have to talk about character when you talk about some of these government snitches, some of the witnesses. In Cooley's case, he was an admitted cokehead and degenerate gambler. He was pretty much stoned most of the time. He even testified he was high and had been drinking during several court appearances. He spent thousands of dollars. He blew thousands of dollars every weekend doing blow and mostly gambling. I think probably the biggest motivator besides his tax concerns were this gentleman here. He owed No-Nos $400,000 for gambling debts. No-Nos was very patient with him. And if it were anybody else, they would have been severely beaten or killed. But Cooley was a very important ally to the Chicago outfit at the time. He was one of their go-to mob attorneys. He was the guy they went to bribe judges for their family members, for their friends and associates. But Bob Cooley owed John No-Nos DeFranzo $400,000, and he was ducking him. So that was a big concern on Cooley's end. Another big problem, another motivator that made Cooley flip that he doesn't like to admit is that one of DeFranzo's underbosses, Marco the Mover D'Amico, a made member of the Chicago outfit, Cooley owed him $120,000 in gambling, and Marco wasn't as patient and as nice as DeFranzo. He knew that it was just a matter of time before Marco would have one of him or his goons put his hands on him and maybe put him in the hospital or probably eventually kill him like they did with Hal Smith and Plummer. So this is Marco D'Amico. Probably the only reason he did not give Cooley a beating was the fact that they used and abused Cooley. They needed him to make certain cases go their way. Bob Cooley also associated and hung out with some of the guys from the Wild Bunch, believe it or not. Harry Alleman, Tony Borsellino, Butchie, Scalise. He not only gambled and drank with these guys, but he represented a lot of them and their family members. So with a guy like Cooley, if your son got pinched for a DUI or a drug case, or say your son fucked up and actually killed somebody, with a corrupt lawyer like Cooley who knew the right judges, you could pretty much beat any case, even murder. Back then, if you had 10 grand with a lawyer like Cooley, and other lawyers like him and the right corrupt judge, you could beat a murder rap for $10,000. Some part of Cooley's testimony I did like, though, when he testified about what it was like going out with the boys, some of the Chicago outfit guys and their associates down on Rush Street. These guys literally, from back then, even today, control pretty much all the bars and restaurants and nightlife in the Rush Street, Viagra Triangle area. You got major coke, major drug dealing going on, a lot of drug users. You've got prostitution going on. You've got major gambling going on. This is like where all the wise guys like to hang out and party back in the day. And I remember in the Family Secrets trial, they talked about how Butch Preticelli, Butchie would go down the Rush Street with 15, 20 guys and raise hell. And then Borsellino would find out that Butchie was down there causing a ruckus. He wanted to know how many guys. Then he would go down the next night with even more guys and try to outdo Butchie's guys, with all the sex and the drugs and the rock and roll and the women. And there was always fights. I personally remember seeing people get thrown in the paddy wagons pretty much every weekend. But why this was going on, the outfit bosses like Gaiupa, Tony Ricardo, Jack Cerrone, Angelo Petra, they didn't like this. They didn't like seeing all this bullshit in the papers or on the news. It was drawing too much heat. They like to keep things very low, as we know. And eventually, even though Butchie and Tony Borsellino were trusted, made members of Chicago Outfit, eventually both of them got killed by the Chicago Outfit. Now here's a powerful politician in Chicago, John DiArco. We'll call him a Chicago Outfit associate. Bob Cooley did business with him and then ended up testifying against him, and he wore a wire on him. John DiArco was convicted mostly on the testimony of Bob Cooley, and when the Chicago Outfit lost John DiArco, and when the powerful First Ward collapsed and all the guys were found guilty, that was a major, major blow for the Chicago Outfit. Probably the biggest blow ever, in my opinion, because they took away all their political power. However, you got cities like New York, Philly, Detroit, where they didn't have as strong of political influence as Chicago Outfit did. But this was a major blow when this guy got convicted, and he got convicted based on Bob Cooley snitching on him. Here you got powerful Alderman Fred Rohde. His campaign slogan was "Vote for me and nobody gets hurt." This guy was more powerful than the mayor and the governor. He pretty much ran the entire city of Chicago, made members of Chicago Outfit from the 26th Street crew, him and Pat Marcy. Bob Cooley wore a wire on him, testified against him in court. I'll never forget, I was in court. I went to Alderman Fred Rohde's trial. This guy's like 5'2", a real character. He was escorted in and out of court every day, surrounded by an entourage of beautiful women, and two of the girls I knew from the nightclubs. Now, again, a guy like Bob Cooley, all his clients, everyone he represented were either gangbangers, killers, burglars, thieves, drug dealers, or wise guys. And any defense attorney will tell you that usually when they're going up against the government, the evidence is overwhelming. They try to get their client to cop a plea, and some of their clients are very difficult to deal with. And when some of the defendants are found guilty, it's the lawyers that they blame. So Cooley had a lot of lowlifes that he represented that were eventually found guilty and took a personal vendetta against him. They blamed Bob Cooley for them being locked up. A lot of times they blamed the lawyer. But Cooley eventually got in over his head with all the scumbags he was representing, all the dangerous people he was representing. He got way over his head, dealing and doing favors with Chicago Outfit. Things were starting to turn. They were starting not to trust him as much. And they had a good gut feeling because he did eventually cooperate and wore a wire for 3 years. I mean, it's a long time to wear a wire on Cooley. He's very lucky that he only got chased out of Chicago, that he actually made it out alive. Bob Cooley also testified against Harry Allman at the 2016 California building. I was at Harry's second trial. As we all know, the first trial, allegedly Harry Allman killed a union official, Bill Logan, because Bill Logan was talking shit about Harry and his family. He should have known better. Through Bob Cooley in the first ward, they bribed the judge for $10,000. The judge found Harry not guilty. Fast forward with Bob Cooley's testimony and his cooperation, they found out that in the first trial, the judge was indeed bribed. So they threw out the double jeopardy. That was the first time they ever threw out the double jeopardy law. It was on Harry Allman. So I went to his second trial, and Bob Cooley was the main witness that testified against Harry Allman. He never once looked over at Harry, and I was shocked to see how much this man has aged by being locked up for so long. But unfortunately for Harry and his family, who was sitting in the gallows just a few feet from me, they're in support of him. Unfortunately for Harry and his family, the jury actually believed the government's main witness, Bob Cooley. He testified that he was actually the bag man that bribed the judge in the first trial. He also gave the ladies and gentlemen and jury a list of all the made members and a nice organizational chart that they showed on the monitor. But if it wasn't for Bob Cooley's testimony, Harry Allman would have beat that trial a second time. Actually went to his wake after the Family Secrets trial. I really didn't want to go, but my friend Bob Ferguson from the Tribune asked me to go. He didn't want to go alone, but I'll never forget when I went. It was a pretty good turnout. A lot of people went. A few people I knew. I said a prayer for Harry Allman and his family, and I also said a prayer for Harry and his victims. Here's Ed Jensen. He was Harry Allman's attorney, one of the top defense attorneys in Chicago. This guy's a real character. And way back in the day, before I started going to trials, he was one of the best. I seen him when he kind of lost his edge a little bit, but still, he's very sociable. You could talk to him. I seen him represent Frankie Caruso. I seen him represent Harry Allman and a couple other outfit guys. And I always love it when guys like Ed Jensen and other defense attorneys really go after and start yelling and grilling some of these low-life snitches on the stand. Judge kind of gives them a little bit of leeway, and they really call them out on their drug use, their alcohol use, whether the fact that they have a record. They really fucking rip them a new asshole. But Bob Cooley, I will say, he stood up to Eddie Jensen. He wasn't backing down. He actually knew Eddie Jensen, both of them being attorneys. But Eddie Jensen did his best to really discredit Bob Cooley. But unfortunately for Harry Allman and Alderman Rhodey and the guys in the first ward, the jury did believe the testimony from Bob Cooley. They found him credible. Here's corrupt Judge Frank Wilson. He was the judge that Cooley bribed in the first trial when Harry Allman was acquitted. And during the trial, the prosecution had a pretty strong case. Judge Wilson met Bob Cooley later that day after court at a bar, and he told him that he was worried about the case because if he finds Harry not guilty, all hell's going to break loose and his career is going in the toilet. So he was kind of trying to back out, and he also hinted that he needed more money. So when Bob Cooley went back to Pat Marcy was livid and said that effing judge agreed to do it for this amount. He's not getting one dime more. And if he doesn't do it, meaning if he doesn't find Harry not guilty, he's going to have some serious problems. So Bob Cooley testified on the stand that he relayed that message to Judge Wilson. It was quite obvious he was pressuring Judge Wilson. Luckily for Judge Wilson, he made the right decision, and he found Harry guilty. He found Harry Allman not guilty of the shotgun blast murder of Bill Logan. Everybody in the court was shocked except for Bob Cooley and Harry Allman because they knew the fix was in. Fast forward, This scumbag, disgraced judge is retired in Arizona, collecting his $120,000 a year pension. He couldn't take the guilt anymore, and he shot and killed himself. Ed Jensen was blaming Bob Cooley for the judge's suicide. Bob Cooley testified that he probably bribed over 500 Cook County judges during his career as a corrupt defense attorney. But this is Frank Wilson, who ended up killing himself over the guilt of not only ruining his career, but the guilt he felt by letting a guilty man like Harry Alleman off the hook. And then in the end, all these defendants are always found guilty, 99.9% of the time, especially in a federal case. Bob Cooley's testimony resulted in 23 men getting indicted, convicted, and all sentenced to jail. Some of these guys were Chicago-made men, Chicago associates, crooked lawyers, and several crooked judges. All got sent to jail based on Bob Cooley's testimony. Bob Cooley spent no time in jail, got out of paying Marco, D'Amico, and John Nonos the Franzo hundreds of thousands of dollars, and did minimum a slap on the wrist. But these are the deals that the government will make with these lowlifes just to go after some of the biggest fish. So that's my rat of the week. Bob Cooley, corrupt cop, crooked-ass lawyer, fixed thousands of cases, alcoholic, degenerate gambler, got in over his head, didn't want to go to jail, didn't want to pay any of his debts, decided to cooperate, flip, and wear a wire on a lot of his friends. He got chased out of Chicago, and I think he's still alive today. And I'm sure Marco D'Amico, Aldvin, Rhodey, and others would love to get their hands around this guy's throat. But his testimony, his cooperation brought down the entire First Ward. In my opinion, that was probably the biggest blow to the Chicago outfit. Now, later in the week, I'm going to drop the Mike Sarno trial. I did a show on Large not too long ago, maybe about a year ago, but it was such an interesting case. I'm going to drop another story on the Sarno trial. This is one of my favorite trials. At first, I wasn't going to go because I really didn't know anybody, and I was kind of spoiled with the Family Secrets trial. Nothing can compare to that. But I'm so glad I went to Large's trial. He was charged, along with other co-defendants, for running a multi-million-dollar illegal gambling operation. They had a sophisticated burglary crew in the Midwest and a bombing charge. Large and one of the other defendants, I'll call him the man in black, were out on bond. So you could talk to them, you could make small talk. Two of the defendants in custody was father and son. Samuel, World War II Navy veteran, and his son, Anthony. And probably the main defendant, where most of the evidence was against, was a high-ranking outlaw motorcycle guy named Mark Polchman. So what was interesting, you had the Outfits Association with the outlaw motorcycle gang. But stay tuned. That should be a pretty good one. That was a trial I'll never forget. And I hope everybody has a good week. Again, if you like my Chicago mob trial stories, hit the like button, subscribe, share with your friends, enter your comments. And for my haters out there, go to bed, man. Take the wife to Olive Garden, okay? Walk the dog. Good night, guys.